raise that bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Gear, and today we have the fortunate opportunity to sit with Norman James. And Norman's been around media for a long time, obviously on TV, doing sports, doing a lot of different things, and obviously made a living, in sport without making the NHL or the MLB or the NBA or anything like that. So it's always cool to kind of see how that happened and kind of what kind of route you took to get to where you are right now, and being a bit of an influencer or influence in the game, and with your podcast, the Leafs Convo, which is awesome, and get some good dialogue going on in there. And anytime you deal with any kind of hockey fan, especially Leafs Nation, you're going to have some interesting characters there for sure.
No question. Thanks for having me, by the way. I like your setup. It's minimalist, but it sounds good. That's the key. When you put together a podcast, you can have all the bells and whistles you want.
Yeah.
If you don't have the content, you don't have a podcast.
Yeah, no, it's true. For sure.
So you have the content, you have the setup, and you have the good looks too, man.
Oh, well, hey, thank you.
It's just you and I here. So.
Yeah, exactly.
I covered sports in this community from 2002 to 2017. 26 years of age.
Yeah.
I was working in Hamilton, covering fires, sexual assaults, predators, the whole thing. Hamilton's a great news city.
Yeah.
I get a phone call from a manager at the local station here and asked me if I'd be interested to come and become an anchor and a sports reporter in London. I really hadn't thought of London ever before that phone call. Turns out the guy who hired me here in London was the guy who trained me on the computer operating system in Hamilton, my first day, his last day. So what he wanted to do was steal me away from the place that he was fired from.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Bring me to London.
Yeah.
Now, that worked for him, but for me, I still sometimes look back and wonder, what would my life be like if I didn't come here?
Yeah.
However, 15, 16, 17, I don't even remember how many years it's been, 02 to 17, you do the math, 15 years, covered sports of all kinds. London Knights, obviously practicing downstairs. Imagine covering junior hockey teams. There's 20 of them in the OHL. Imagine covering the, Erie Otters when they were terrible in the United States, or covering the Owen Sound Attack, or covering any team. It'd be a privilege, but to be able to cover the London Knights.
Yeah.
So I got here at the right time.
And you also you were here right when they just moved, or just about to move, right? So they were going from, they were done at the ice house.
Their first season at John Labatt Center.
So you just got a gravy. You got a gravy ride then.
So it's been an absolute. And this is the thing, Dwayne. I look back on my career in London doing sports, and I think it was for what it's worth, it was a Hall of Fame career. We did so much great stuff.
Cool.
For me, it's all about covering the stories, making an impact that way, having great experiences. I did all of that. The thing about working in broadcast is, it's not supposed to be forever. So when you have people working in the same place forever and ever and ever, past their prime, past their relevancy, past being able to do something important, it's because they're collecting a check and they're waiting to pad out that pension, which is their prerogative. For me, I had a great run, but when they canceled sports, when they shut the place down on that Monday night, Tuesday morning,
and that was kind of a bit of a shocker, right? That wasn't, do you kind of know what's coming down the pipe, or not really?
No. Well, actually, yes and no. They were shutting down stations, sports departments across the country in certain spots. And I got to be careful what I say, because I have a non-disclosure.
For sure.
So,
but I mean, just like being in the industry, you kind of maybe saw it coming a little bit that maybe something around our area is going to happen here. Right?
So there's always a concern. And what happens is, when you work in local television, you know that you really have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like London's got 7 television stations. One's going defunct, 2 more are coming on board.
Yeah.
People want to keep their jobs, and you need that income. I've always looked at things differently, and that's a contentious issue with my wife and a lot of my friends and financial advisors and stuff like that. But we knew there was things were crumbling around the system throughout the network, but within house, we were given an idea that we're still doing okay, and we might be able to hang on here. Now, that could have been nonsense. It could have been real, because remember, there are multiple layers of decision makers in any corporation.
For sure.
So the decision maker, your supervisor, might have one sense of what's going on. 3 or 4 rungs up the ladder, there's something completely different, and they're the ones who will ultimately have the final say. So we may have been naive to believe that we were going to last and we were going to hang on and survive what was clearly an assault on local, not just local sports, but local TV, local stories, local culture.
Yeah.
You're naive because you want to believe that there's still a way forward, and it just ended. So again, the career started well. It ended abruptly, but it was a 15-year run of magical stuff, and I'm proud of it. It was great. And, interesting kind of re-emerging now. Took some time off, a lot of time on the couch, a lot of thinking. I'm back in business with Got Game Sports and Sports Express Network, and obviously pushing the Leafs Convo. Getting out and seeing people, and people asking me, where have you been? What's going on? It's interesting because it's a weird story, and it's just a matter of me saying, I'm just back, and I don't know how I'm going to be back, but I'm here. I'm going public again. I'm out in the mix, and we'll just see where it takes me. No,
it's cool. And I think being in a career for 15 years is a long time. And I'm sure at certain points at year 13, 14, you're thinking, this is kind of what I'm going to do for a long time. And then all of a sudden that happens. And a lot of guys would have crumbled, got a job at Cami or whatever. Right. And you decide, I'm passionate about the media side and telling a story and stuff. And now you've, done a really good job. You're doing a ton of interviews, ton of podcasts and stuff, which is awesome. So, going back to looking at your last couple of years there to what you're doing now, has it been a pretty cool shift in kind of staying passionate with what you're doing? You obviously love what you're doing right now.
I could make 3 times the amount working on television than I do now, and
it's because you're
the differential is a lot more than that. But I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't go back.
Yeah,
I don't miss working on television. I don't miss it.
Yeah,
I miss the idea of it. I miss moments.
Sure.
I don't miss working in the local facility at all.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it. Once I left, I've never thought about it again.
Oh, that's great.
And it is great because a lot of times people think, oh, poor you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I want, see, the interesting thing about me is I'm an A-type. My mood fluctuates. My passion is always there, but so when you're a passionate person, you feel something in the morning that you don't feel in the afternoon.
Right.
And by the time it's, you're ready to go to air, you're composed and you're ready to go. That's just who I am. And I think one of the things about me, Dwayne, finding through this whole process of leaving local television and wandering the wilderness for a while is finding out who I am and embracing it.
Yeah.
Making up for the things, fixing the things about me that need to be repaired in order to keep my family together, to keep people believing in what I'm about, but not suppressing the good things about me, the things that can help move me forward. So to be able to come out and say, the past is the past. It's not dead, but the past is the past. It was a great time. It was a lot of fun. But if they asked me to come back to local TV, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because I know what local TV is about. I know what local media is about. I understand the struggles. I wanted to be a part of something that was growing. And when we were at our peak and things were growing and the numbers, 10, 20, 30,000 views on our webpage that we created ourselves for our TV station, local football, London Knights running high, Western Mustangs football, all these, Damian Warner, you name the amazing stars coming from here. We were right on top of all of that.
Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it because that was what it was about. But as soon as those opportunities became fewer and far between, and the paint started peeling off the wall, and there was no repair, and it was cold. It was cold in there. There was no heat. It was too hot. There was no air conditioning. I'm not saying that's what's happening at a particular facility.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to give you a sense of when
you can kind of see it happening. Right? Yeah.
Then that for me that was it.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of others are looking for the security, and this is the way people are in any walk of life.
100%.
But it doesn't drive me. It doesn't sustain me. And to be honest with you, in a lot of ways, it's dangerous for me. So to answer your question, I'm totally thrilled to be back being me as a personality, as somebody who cares about local sports and wants to tell the stories. Doing it through my podcast, it's been incredible. But it's the Leafs, it's worldwide. The stuff I'm doing with Got Game and Sports Express, we're just emerging, and I can start to sense some good stuff happening.
Yeah.
My fingers are crossed that we can continue along this path, because the thing about content and telling stories and creating, Rome wasn't built in a day. London's new sports realm, new sports conduit, sports network won't be built in a day. It takes time.
For sure.
So that's something that I'm reiterating in discussions regarding our plan forward. And I think I'm pretty confident that when everything's considered, my contributions to the plan, my advice will be taken, and I think we'll succeed.
No, it's awesome. And I think, the one thing too, you look back in 2002, let's say, and kind of when you get into the workforce and stuff to what it is now, there's a lot more opportunity for young guys, girls to do what you're doing or what I'm doing or whatever, as far as just getting out there and having a bit of a voice, talking to cool people. And the big thing with this podcast is kind of seeing where guys came from. Like, you as a young kid, obviously you were an athlete, you played, I'm sure you had dreams.
Didn't look like one.
No, but I mean, I'm sure you had dreams of playing in Major League or playing, and then maybe that, didn't happen for whatever reason. Same with me, but had a good run, loved it. And then now we're both, making a living in sport and doing sports stuff, which is amazing, right?
No, absolutely. I always thought I'd either be an athlete or someone who was in broadcast.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I'd listen to, growing up in Toronto, you'd listen to Leaf games, listen to Blue Jay games. I'd listen to 680. I'd listen to 1050.
Yeah.
And just listening to it, I was a student of it, Dwayne.
Yeah.
I loved it. One of my heroes as a kid was Knowlton Nash. And I don't know if people who know who that is, but he was the figurehead newsman for CBC for years, Knowlton Nash.
Okay.
So I wanted his autograph.
Yeah.
In addition to Alan Besters and Builder Lego and Tom Ferguson, those guys.
So you definitely got into
Lloyd
the right stream then.
Well, what happened is I'm 5'0", as my coach in Texas used to call me. Like he would stand there. Gary Benton from Oklahoma. This guy had some serious stories. I don't know if I want to go on during your podcast because I want to make sure your podcast isn't wiped off the face of the earth for having to tell you real stories. But 5'0", but I had left hand. I'm left-handed.
Okay.
90 miles an hour. All hips, nasty curveball, paid my school.
Awesome.
Gave me some big opportunities. Won everything you could win as an amateur baseball player. But what happened is, it'd be almost like, Dwayne, you've played with hockey players throughout your life who, throughout minor hockey, coming up through the ranks, maybe even just through the OHL, I've seen it with take Justin Acevedo and some of these guys. No, some of these kids in OHL superstars, just racking up points. And there's nothing about them going to the NHL, and you're wondering, wait a minute, the guy just got 6 points.
Yeah,
another hat trick. He's dominating. But in the same realm as they were, I was a guy who was high achiever, but my projectability as a guy who might be going to the pros and making a difference was really low. I had grown to my max, not very heavy. And a lot of times scouts, and this is the same for hockey, it's changing a bit. They're looking for the corn-fed monsters who bring it 90-something and who might be wild and untamed and sort of inhibited by a lack of finesse. Those are the players, the kinds of projects that scouts want because they can mold them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because you look at a smaller guy like a Johnny Gaudreau, let's say, right? Well, Johnny Gaudreau is obviously a phenomenal player, but he's small, so he needs to be really good and tight on everything. Whereas 6'5" guy, be like, we can work with that. But
is it changing? Is it changing though? That's the thing I'm wondering about.
It is. It has changed a lot at the NHL level, where smaller guys are getting opportunities because the rules have changed, right? Where if you played back in before 05 when they did change the clutching and grabbing, I mean, it's hard for a small guy to play because you could grab guys, you could pull pants down, like pull the back of pants, you could hook. So for small guys, it took that speed away. Now those smaller guys that are fast, that's a big asset. So you are going to have more smaller guys, But even as a small guy to be able to play in the NHL. Even a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, you got to be tough. And I don't mean fighting tough. I mean, you got to be able to take a hit, take abuse, mentally strong. And those 6'5" guys are still going to get a lot of times the benefit of the doubt. Oh, he's pretty athletic. We can work with that. Where no one's going to say he's 5'4". We can work with that. You got to be good. You got like a Fleury. You got to be good. Like you got to be already pretty polished when you get there in order to play at that level.
You know what I like about Johnny Gaudreau, Chris Drury. There's a name.
Yeah, a little old school there.
Marty St. Louis. Dougie Gilmore.
Yeah.
Dougie.
There you go.
Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
You know what I like about these guys? Plug and play. Put them on the ice. They'll play. Yeah. Let's go.
Well, they're gamers, right?
No, they're gamers. Mitch Marner. This guy was the smallest guy on the ice throughout his entire career and usually had the most points and was the guy who emerged at the end of the day. But for the longest time, and I've had my issues with his father and because I still think Paul Marner, and this we'll talk about, I still think he's got the axe to grind with the entire world over this. I don't know whether it's real or a kind of an imaginative concept that his kid would never make it because he was too small. Now the guy's going to get 100 points, and it's like there's time to let it go.
And he's going to get paid.
He's going to get paid. But I've been Mitch Marner is the kind of guy, and he was a superstar in his own right, but this is one of the fun things about working in local sports here, especially covering the Knights. We turn these guys from stars into like bananas, over-marketed, over-covered, like hockey gods. But what I'm saying about, and this is what I've always gone on about Mitch Marner, and this is why I like him better than, say a William Nylander. I know that's a contentious issue as well, but I'm right. No, but it's just true. Mitch Marner, you put him on the ice and he plays. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need games, and he doesn't need seasons, and he doesn't need younger coaches to help facilitate his breakout. Mitch Marner goes on the ice and he plays the game. He's a player. He's a player. He just goes and plays, and that's what I like about this. And that's why when you see these smaller guys, the more diminutive players, getting the chance now, it's great. Because these are the guys who can actually go out and get things done, make a difference right now, as opposed to, well, he's a big boy, he's a project. We've seen that with defensemen. Remember Luke Schenn?
Yeah.
He was rushed. But it's one of these days, Luke Schen's going to be a force, a Norris Trophy, Chris Pronger. One of these days, I don't want to wait 9 years for this guy to come into his own.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one of the things, too, like a guy like Mitch Marner is a great example. But, I mean, this is a kid who is a phenomenal player, obviously, and he deserves everything he's getting right now. He's playing really well. But, I mean, you got to think, he played on the fourth line of Matt Martin for a while. He got, it didn't come really easy for him right away. Now, he made the NHL, which is amazing. Sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, he took his lumps. But if you're not mentally tough at any aspect, right, but especially these smaller guys playing any kind of sport, but let's say hockey, if you're not mentally tough, I mean, look at, comparing William Nylander to Martin.
And I love William Nylander, by the way.
He's a great player.
No, I love him, and I bring this up because of the podcast.
Might have had a bit of a slow start this year, right? When he came in late. Yeah. And where a kid like Martin, I bet he's just a different, and he's a gamer, man. He's a kid who'll block a shot, he'll work his tail off, kills penalties, does it all, So
Dwayne, I was in Red Deer. I hope I can come back to share more stories with you.
For sure. Yeah.
I was in Red Deer for the Memorial Cup.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, you know what? That was interesting because it was spring of.
No, you're good.
Sorry, it was spring of 2016. So a year later is when they shut down sports.
Yeah,
I had a sense in the back of my mind, and this I hate to draw it personally here, but it's true that this was going to be the end, the last big hurrah.
Like your tour.
So I covered that event like it was going on. I covered it like it was the Super Bowl times 50.
Yeah,
like. I was there. I did 30, 40 items every day. We made a big deal. But as an observer, to watch the London Knights dominate and have the rest of Canada be in such denial over, well, these Ontario teams, they're not that good. And then when they shellac you by 9 goals, it's, well, they're stacked because it's there's 15 million people in the
right.
And then to have the collective arena in Red Deer cheering for Gatineau, the French team,
right,
over the Ontario team because God forbid Ontario wins again. The point I'm trying to make here is I watched Mitch Marner and Christian Dvorak and Matt Tkachuk. These guys were unbelievable. And the best thing about it, Dwayne, when the Knights were down a man, those guys were on the ice.
Yeah.
So when I hear now John Bartlett or somebody talking, and I don't mean to single him out, but somebody going on about, well, it's interesting, Mitch Marner's really turned out to be a decent penalty killer. What?
Yeah, he's doing.
You ever see what he was doing with the London Knights? And oh, by the way, don't bring it up that these guys are in junior players because the Hunters ran that thing like a professional organization. I was just joking with what's his name, Willie Lougheed,
Lahead, yeah,
Lahead,
yeah.
Okay, that shows you I haven't been around Knights for a long time. I was just joking about how the Hunters, their philosophy is all 3 zones, 200-foot hockey. Mitch Marner was playing that kind of hockey well before he got to the NHL. And this idea that there's a revelation in his game now, is he's added something. Okay, sure, if you want to believe that, that's the way you want to, kind of put it together. But he was doing that before, and he was ready to do that. I think Mike Babcock
Well, and I think that's why he made the team, right? Is he had some of those intangibles already, and obviously Babcock's helped him progress his game. There's no doubt about it. But I think, he was obviously a player at that point. And a lot of times I, travel a lot with work and things like that, but a lot of people are always knocking the Knights. Oh, the Knights are, they got money. But man, as well as I do, behind the scenes, the Hunters work hard. Their coaching staff, Dylan, Stedman, they work hard, man. There's a reason why they're good, and there's a reason why they're one of the elite teams, right? And it's not by accident. And it goes back to any kid out there, any parent out there, like, you're going to get out of things what you put into it. So you work hard at stuff. May not work right away, may not work every time, but you keep working at it. It's gonna come, right? And you can see it there.
Yeah. Well. Let's go real quick, and I don't want to belabor it, but it's interesting because it still kind of bugs me when William Nylander was involved in this impasse. He wasn't holding out. It was an impasse. The team, was just as complicit in any inaction as William Nylander and his father. So here's the deal. I look at it like, there was this idea that a guy like Nylander was on par as a total hockey player with somebody like Mitch Marner because of his zone entries. And, he was one of those guys, he was a play driver. He still is.
Oh, for sure.
He still is. And so as you had this, and you hear words like recency bias pulled up, because remember, in order for William Nylander to get as much money as he possibly could, and you know better than me.
Yeah.
But they've got to make the case as to why he is invaluable and the Leafs need him. And why would you say, well, as a group trying to get as much money as possible and get your player back in the NHL, why would you say, well, whenever you need us, call us. We'll do what we need to do. No, you're going to stand your ground, and you're going to start to now draw comparisons and parallels to others who are expected to get paid. And then what bothered me is that I think in creating this mythical image of William Nylander being somebody who was so important and so on par with the greatest of the game, there was part of that is there was a teardown and a bit of a disrespect thrown at Mitch Marner, who is viewed as a contemporary. And where I would say Mitch Marner just outdoes him is one, that Mitch Marner is not as complicated a player, and he's also not as high maintenance. And this, people don't like to hear this because it's all of a sudden now it's not right that you're from the Mecca of the game. The kid grew up playing in Toronto. I'm sorry, I'm not saying he's better as a human being, but when you grow up playing in that kind of environment and having to deal with the nonsense he had to as a smaller player, you're going to gain a lot more as just with intrinsic value for the game and intrinsic understanding and just that idea of you being a player than you will if you're playing anywhere else, because you're now in the center of it all. It could also blow you up and destroy you.
Yeah, that's.
But totally. So what I'm saying though is, so when you bring up these extra factors, a lot of times you're accused of being a bigot or, now he's good old Canadian boy. No, don't call me Don Cherry. That's not what I'm saying. But in the same way you're building your guy up and saying he's got all of these qualities that can make him an incredible player, why would we deny the realities about his contemporaries or someone else that in a lot of ways, especially during this Nylander impasse, was being kind of brought down in order to bring up William Nylander. So that's what I'm saying. A guy like Mitch Marner, he came and PK Subban, Steve Stamkos, John Tavares. These guys came from the incubator. These guys came from the pressure cooker. Yeah, and they survived it. You think the OHL's tough? Go try midget hockey and bantam hockey.
I totally agree with you. And I think the biggest thing there, again, going back to kind of what I was talking about earlier, is that mental toughness. Like these kids have grown up, like Marner got abused his whole life in minor hockey, playing up a year, playing with the older guys. McDavid, same thing. He was playing up a year, going to private school. Like how much abuse do you think those guys took on a daily basis? Gosh. And then you look at a guy like John Tavares, same thing. Toronto boy.
I love that guy.
But he's a perfect fit for Toronto. He's mentally tough. He says the right things. He doesn't get too caught up in the media. But how many players have gotten chewed up and spit out by the Leafs and Leafs Nation? I mean, it's unbelievable. Goalies, forget about it. If you're a goalie and you get drafted to the Leafs, forget. I renege.
The way we contradict ourselves as hockey fans is just it's ridiculous. And this is my problem with having a podcast is that. And Mike Augello, my podcast partner in crime, Mike in Buffalo from the old Andy Frost Leafs Talk days, will advise me, don't read the comments. Don't get too involved. But in our formative stage, I want to make sure that people understand that we don't think we're bigger than anything. We want to interact. now that we're pulling down 50, 60,000 listeners a month, and, we're bringing in thousands of comments, and it's getting harder because I can't reach out to everybody. I'm busy, and I'm finding a lot of people who are talking now aren't making sense to me. And I find the same way I might not make sense to them.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I just say what I say, man. It's not rocket science. It's not, we're not trying to decide if we're going to, extract this kidney and give it to, patient A or patient B.
Right.
Or, are we going to start planning the eulogy for one of them? It's not about that. But this is why we contradict ourselves all the time. We build up one player with traits and qualities we think are important to emphasize, yet those traits and qualities are null and void when we talk about someone else, right?
Yeah.
So when you bring up, spitting players out and how tough it can be, look, I think it's part of the process. It's part of the process. And when you play in a market that has that palpable energy and that palpable pressure, but also that palpable opportunity, like Toronto, these are the kinds of scenarios you're going to encounter as a player. And unfortunately, a lot of players who deserve better didn't survive them. And a lot of players who probably didn't deserve to survive them did.
Yeah.
It's just, it's part of the process and playing in such a crazy place where there's so much opinion. And to be honest with you, maybe it's unfortunate, but it's part of the deal where there's so much division and so much disconnect in the way people view the same thing,
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of, realistically, you look at it in Toronto and Montreal and a lot of the big markets, the fans are passionate, man. They love their team. It's like having a kid. Like every single, my line the last year is every parent's crazy. It's just who hides it the best. Where you get a fan, they love their team. They don't care. They're going crazy, man. And if you give them a cell phone, an iPad, computer to hack away on, they're gonna light you up, right? There's no. So I mean, I think everyone they're passionate about their team, which is fair. And I think they're going to go off the deep end sometimes when things are going bad. And then I mean, if Toronto ties 6 games in a row, what's going to happen? If they win 6 games in a row, what's going to happen? Let's get the route going. They're going to win the cup. It's done. You know what I mean? It's like one or the other. It's never in the middle. Like, they're doing okay. They're just they're a good bunch of guys. It's like, no, they're the best or the worst. And
it's never good. It's never good enough. If the Leafs won 6 in a row, we'd be excited about it, but we'd temper the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And we'd be everything goes back to the podcast, just so you know, Dwayne. I mean, I'm obsessed with it. But that's the whole point.
Yeah.
But we'll temper it, and people will say that we're jerks for tempering and we're not really fully embracing the run and the possibility. Okay.
Yeah.
If the Leafs are terrible, we'll tell people, relax. This is part of the process.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in denial, man.
Yeah.
You're in denial. Then, if we're like, the team is terrible, that was brutal. It was like the game, the Leafs at Nassau Coliseum. They just didn't answer anything. That was one of those games where I don't care about your metrics. I don't care about how you think your players line up against theirs. That was one of those games. It was a knock them down, drag them out. Nobody's asking you to fight. But you got to go in there and play with a little extra emotion. You can't do that in hockey, by the way. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't advise that in baseball and some other sports like that. And they just didn't answer the call. So we were upset about it. And people, well, look at the scoreboard. Look at the standings. There's still 80-something points. And that, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter what you say. There's always a way for people who absorb what you say to spin it
for sure
to their liking or their disdain.
Well, there you have it. A little bit from Norman James. Really appreciate him stopping by today. And for any of you Leafs fans out there, obviously a passionate Leafs fan Norman is, and really loves obviously breaking down games and talking about the team and going through a lot of stuff on his podcast called the Leafs Convo. You can find that on any social media platform. Does a great job of really going in depth on a lot of different topics with the Leafs, which is great. And always nice to have him around. A little bit opinionated at times, which is always fun. Gets the conversation going and has some definitely some interesting takes on the Leafs and kind of what they're doing this year, which is awesome. So a lot of fun. We're going to have him on again. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of trouble with the audio at the end. Just the last minute or two got cut out. So I'll definitely be having him on for a longer podcast. And I'd love to share some more stories that he has on some of the athletes that he's worked with and some of the stories that he's covered. He's got obviously a long resume of being in the sports world and covering a lot of really, really cool stuff. So thanks again to Norman James for coming out. Again, you can find him on the Leafs Convo. And thanks again for tuning in to Behind the Gear. And we'll have some more episodes coming up soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.